Hello everyone and welcome to this audio podcast in this series aligned to the LabZtorm Impact V3. This is an audio podcast aligned to works surrounding nephrology and what if any other healthcare educational needs for patients with CKD, with chronic kidney disease. And this is an audio podcast aligned to a storm robotics blockade and an audio podcast aligned to another a storm robotics production. So in this audio podcast, in this audio podcast, there will be sort of an overview in aligned to CKD and the role of education. So it has been documented and evidence and there is evidence to suggest so for example that more health promotion in community can also support some of the educational sort of complexities relating to health and disease. A need is found to educate sort of the educators in surrounding long-term in surrounding the long-term condition model and through a population health approach. It has been perceived educators integrate aspects of long-term conditions well, yet found at the same time found that there has been sort of prevention. It's been identified as or there has been evidence in around prevention and early detection, where prevention and early detection is at the sort of hard end of um, uh, of um, of works in surrounding sort of chronic kidney in around chronic kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, and also sort of the sort of the population health sort of approach, if you like. So then, at the same time, there is now an increasing sort of evidence to indicate that research focusing on sort of linking education, health literacy, peer support, and education. Um, therefore, it is now more it is now more sort of transparent that integration of point of care is becoming more important to patients with long-term conditions, especially where healthcare sort of in the last sort of several years has become has sort of become sort of more remote. Um, this, however, also represents an opportunity for example, allied health professionals, or AHPs, to be involved in supporting areas of healthcare, um, uh, to be involved in supporting areas of healthcare and education through, for example, online spaces, which is also where patients share sort of understanding and lived experiences aligned to, for example, aligned to sort of pertinent aspects surrounding clinical and pathology sort of regarding inquiries or questions. So that ends this audio podcast in around looking at some of the bases in around chronic kidney disease and the role of education in context of some additional aspects aligned in regarding in the introductory aspects of this works. The next audio podcast in this series aligned to the LabZtorm Impact V3 will have a focus or a link on, will have a focus or a sort of an overview if you like, in around sort of the some of the methodology aspects in and around this works. This has been an audio podcast, once again aligned to the LabZtorm Impact V3. It's been another audio podcast aligned to the Storm Robotic Blockade, and an audio podcast aligned to Storm Robotics production. Thank you for tuning in.